So, then you surrender your heart, Surrender your eyes, surrender your tongue, surrender your heart. It's like the bow, the Japanese bow, or the Tibetan bow, the Buddhist bow. It's very symbolic of all that. That's what you're doing, To giving your ego a little kick in the pants, man. The ego don't go this way. Ego goes another way, but this overcomes that egotism. Your thing is about overcoming that egotism, man. Egotism will eat your lunch. You think you're a good Buddhism and you're just Rudra. Here's a coming Rudra. Here's another Rudra coming down the path. He thinks he's a Buddha. And he's a fucking raging, upcoming egomaniac. That's what Western students mainly are, man. That's what Western students mainly are. That's the reason we're having so much trouble. It's not because the gurus are corrupt, no. Not at all. It's the students who are so full of ego. Stinking up the place. They're the ones stinking up the place. It's not the water that's not right around here. It's not the water in the well. The guru didn't poison the well. That is not what's going on there. It's the witch hunt from the students. Hanging the gurus, hanging the good students, hanging the righteous. So this egotist can hold power in this Sangha. You ever tried to break into a Sangha, man? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Ever try to teach these people anything? They will fucking crucify you. They will fucking crucify you every time. These egotists that are in control of these little sanghas and big sanghas. And medium-sized sanghas. Yep. Egotists want power. That's what they want. They want power. They're a little scared of the guru when he's around, but he's never around. They look around. Yeah, the guru comes, and I shit my pants when he comes, but then he's gone. I can do what I want. And they do. But, even the guru's around, this is replete with stories of, the Kempo. He had this little guy that was the most irritable thing you've ever seen. But to get to him, you had to go through this guy, and all these teachers around him, and they want access, and I got to go through this guy. It's just the most irritating, egotistical maniac you've ever seen, but it's, it's like the petty tyrant in Don Juan. You ever read The Fire from Within? Don Juan. It's for the Toltec warrior who really wanted to perfect his warriorship. Is all about going and finding a petty tyrant. The more powerful and dangerous and murderous he is, the better. And then you train your warrior spirit to defeat that petty tyrant with patience and strategy and humor. You think it's hilarious. So you surrender your heart. Caring for others. Giving up, a servant of ego. Killing it, you know. I used to be a Sufi. The Sufis are La ilaha illallahu, and they just stab the ego 20 million times. La ilaha illallahu. La ilaha illallahu. They just kill the ego over and 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 over. That's kind of what we do. With the Nundra will say, or the prostrations, that's the best way to humiliate the ego. But really, any kind of practice where you're bored out of your mind. It's not about you, you know. But you tend to take it back. That's the problem. When I had this great Buddhist teacher, of course, in academia, the whole point is to keep it separate, you know. Devotion and practice and is one thing, and then Buddhist studies over here, and there the two shall meet. Frederick Strang, he didn't make a big impression on him in Boulder. At SMU in Dallas. He wrote a book on emptiness. But he introduced me to Buddhism, you know. I come back, you know, after a few years in the wars, you know, I don't know. And he says to me, can you integrate? And I said, I didn't say, I have no idea what you're fucking talking about. Could you explain it, you know? I just said, yeah. I had no idea. Well, that's the whole question in Buddhism. Can you integrate? Which means, what happens to your shit face when you step off the cushion? Do you retain all this wisdom? Because people do all right on a cushion, you know. Even pieces of wood look good on that cushion. You should have seen him before he came to us. People look at somebody and say, you know, you got some crazy people around here. You should have seen him before he came to meditate with us for 20 years. Well, integrate. That's the whole thing in Dzogchen, the 3 words that strike the vital point. Can you integrate? Can you do it 24/7? Can you remain in the state of Rikpa 24/7? Or when you get off the cush, you go back to being normal Joe Blow. You go back to your old life like nothing ever happened. That would be not integrating yet. But then at some point, you know, you make a decision. I'm going to try this integration thing. I'm going to try to keep this party going when I get off the cushion. I'm going to make an effort before you don't even know. You even know it's possible. The idea of making an effort would be a strange notion to you. I'm just going to go live my life. I'm going to practice mindfulness, which means to do nothing at all in this case. Nothing at all. Besides a little fragrance. There's a little fragrance of having meditated. Otherwise, you're indistinguishable from your former self. Nothing is changed in the least. You're completely in your head the whole time. You know, you don't know how to practice mindfulness. Nobody taught you, Alexander. So you can really apply mindfulness. As a Western person, you got no chance. You have no clue what mindfulness is. You maybe have a little whiff that you brought off the cushion, but you don't really know how to apply mindfulness at all, in the least. Sad. Sad. So sad. So anyway, I was telling you about this Trungpa Rinpoche event of the century. So at the end of it, there's this, I can't divulge too many secrets. It's all about this brush. In Shambhala Warriors, we train with a brush, We train with a sword. We kill a few, but we learn a lot. It's part of the game. We train the bow and arrow. We kill less. But we hurt, Somebody's bound to get hurt. Somebody's bound to cut their finger. Oh, I forgot to put on my glove. Poked my finger. But there's a lot of beautiful things, We train with a horse. Somebody's gonna end up like Christopher Reeve, probably. Even tea ceremony, you're liable to get your heart completely broken, man. You're gonna walk in there one guy, and you're gonna walk out of there in love with the world. And everybody that ever went in that tea house with you. There's gonna be casualties, but with the brush, it's just the best. But we don't know how to do it. Not one of you knows how to do it. Not one of you has a clue how to do it. I don't care who you are. If you're the best brush, you might have a clue, but you don't really practice that way. You're out for art. You're out for the end result. You're out to show what a fucking fantastic cootie you are. Look at that cootie paint. Oh. No. It's like all inner transformation, it's like Kudo. It ain't where you hit the target. It ain't how special you are, you hit the target. No. It's all about this mindfulness, this training. You ever heard of this guy named Tessu? He was the most fantastic person imaginable. They called him Demon Tessu. He was like the greatest. Well, that's a tricky one, but possibly the greatest swordsman Japan ever produced. That's saying something, boys and girls, but he had a school. They called him Demon Tessu. And they just trained like crazy men, man. That's the way he'd just take off. He might take off on a, 200-mile walk, in a day and a half or something. He just trained. There are bandits everywhere, but they couldn't keep up with him. If he saw the bandits, it was okay because they're not going to be able to catch him. And he's just walking. Train all morning in swordsmanship, and like your final examination when you are in his school, after 12 years you take your examination to get your first belt or whatever, maybe your final belt. Maybe there's 22 guys in the dojo and they just attack you like demons one after the other for 3 days. No breaks. Just like endlessly coming at you and no, they're not holding back. It's wooden sword, but they'll kill you with those wooden swords. They hit you in the head that wooden sword. You're a vegetable. A lot of guys died getting hit with that wooden sword. A lot of guys got hurt, broken arms, broken this, broken that. As hard as you can go. All your buddies. 3 full days, 8 hours a day, going at you. That's your graduation. Sword of no sword. That's what he called his method. It was very high, very spiritual. He was, then in the afternoon he'd do calligraphy. It's estimated he did 8 million calligraphies. He always was broke. There were bill collectors around constantly. He couldn't pay his bills. he'd have 3 Zen priests who are 3 of the most enlightened guys in the kingdom, but are also drinking him out of house and home. And taking care of, he just took care of the whole world. All the calligraphy he did was sold to help the people. Fortunes and fortunes were made from selling this calligraphy for this earthquake victims over here and this flood disaster over here, just to help with this school over here. Never took a dime for anything. He just wanted to, retire and do, paint the Dharma. Painting the Dharma is so special. We don't even have any idea, the virtue of this brush. The virtue of this brush. And painting these words, these dharmic, meaningful things, is painting the sutras, He just wanted to copy the sutras. The rest of his life, He died of cancer young. 47. Same time our gurus died. Trungpa Rinpoche, 47. Vajrayana Ursula Tenzin, 47. Karen Lemon, 47. It's a tough year for anybody, especially the teachers. So you have 6 guys bring him the paper. Back then, they, had to make this thing. It's very powerful for your mindfulness and your, it made you an enlightened being just making the ink. You had to become enlightened making the ink because either that or quit. It's so boring. But that's how you get enlightened. To be something spiritual, you need 2 main things. Number 1 is very simple. And number 2, it's very repetitive, like raking the Zen garden, for instance, or sweeping the Zen pavilions, or cleaning. Suzuki Roshi, man, he used to clean. And he meditated all morning, but afternoons were for cleaning. They got enlightened through both of those things, not just the one. Just through both of those things. But they got enlightened. Can you integrate? Can you integrate? So, you just paint all evening. Wear those 3 guys out. Those 3 guys were worn out. They're just falling over. He's worn them out, but it's a lot of work doing that thing on your sitting in Seiza. Try doing 4 hours of calligraphy in Seiza. It's work. Then, for a large part of his life, his evenings were devoted to Zen practice. He'd sit he'd do that in the morning with the swords. If he's feeling energetic, he'd take a 200-mile walk, He was training all the time. The people would deliver the groceries and he'd have them, beat on him because he was training. He was in training, helping, That's the way they train with those Qigong guys. And have somebody beat on you. That's your training, part of your training. Anyway, he sat there, for 12 years, every night, 8 to 12, Zen. Poor as a church mouse. He said nothing happened. Those 12 years, nothing happened. He said the only sign that he had in Zen was if a rat would run across the roof and he would look up at it, it would drop dead. He called it my rat-killing Zen. And finally, at the age of 35, he attains enlightenment. He was called one of the three shoes. He single-handedly saved his country from civil war. He was a very close advisor to the restored Emperor Meiji. There's a rebellion when they were kind of getting rid of the samurai. The powers, the samurais lost all their jobs, lost all their power. They were not happy. The Americans had kind of forced it open, but there was a coup as the emperor took over power from the samurai, the Tokugawa family. The Americans kind of caused things to go a certain way, forcing open Japan, forcing them to do things they didn't want to do. And that result was they got an emperor. So the samurai, they had 30,000 of them, and they were the best warriors fighting men the world had ever seen. It was going to be a bloodbath. And the new government had all these conscripts and all these guns, and the samurai had all these swords. They had some guns, but they liked the sword and the bow and arrow. And it was about to be a bloody, bloody thing. So Saigo, he's the leader of the opposition. He's the leader of the rebel forces, the samurai, against the emperor. He don't want to negotiate. He's in a position of strength, and he wants to retain it. So he set up 47 checkpoints. Maybe it's like a 200 miles. He's all the way in the south. The government's in the north. Puts the best soldiers on the earth manning these checkpoints and says, don't let anyone through. Nobody comes in. The greatest soldiers on earth, with one command, let no one pass. Tessu walks right through all 47 of them. Just his power of his energy, just his lungta, they couldn't stop him. They were helpless against him walking right straight past them. They were just like frozen, couldn't move by the power. Even though every fiber of their being, highly trained, was to stop Tessu, no one could do it. He just walked right past him. And it didn't help to think of it later because you couldn't catch him. I like those bandits. They couldn't catch him. Walks into Saigo's tent. Saigo says, didn't you notice those 47 checkpoints? Tessu said, yes, it was very impressive. And he talked Saigo off the ledge, There's no battle. Like 2 years later, they have a battle. They got 3,000 guys. They just wipe them out. Never had a chance at that point. Saved his country from civil war single-handedly. The three shoes. There were two other great statesmen of the age. He was one of the three great statesmen of his age. Dies of stomach cancer. He does a great poem. He does well. Even though some people say you shouldn't talk about being in pain. But he was just real. His death poem contained a mention of this pain contains the universe. But it was really a fantastic poem. But it was so honest and just the way he was. He didn't hide it. He didn't pretend stuff. That wasn't him. You got to read the poem in his school of calligraphy. The poem you do 1,000,000 times as part of your training is the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. It's a kind of a drinking poem. It makes fun of all these different characters from history who are great drinkers and great poets or singers or calligraphers or painters. I passed the emperor's barge, on the boat, and he wanted me to, like, you know, do some calligraphy for him, but I said, my Lord, I'm the Lord of wine. I'm off drinking. I don't have time. Go do the emperor's calligraphy. Just on and on like that. It's hilarious. So, this is a really funny story. At one point in his life, he's really dedicated to the floating world. It's called the geisha world. And drinking. He would drink 6 gallons of sake a day. And he thought he was, and sex, you know, a lot of it. He thought he was the greatest drinker in the world. But he knew another guy who was pretty good, had a pretty good reputation. He thought he would test himself. So he goes out drinking with this guy. And they're drinking all night. They have, 6 gallons of sake. And Tessu wakes up the next morning and says, man, he felt rough. He felt really rough. He said, well, if I feel this bad, think what this guy must feel like. He's probably half dead. I'm going to go check on him. Just to see. So he goes over to this guy's house. And the guy's sitting in his room there, drinking sake. And he says to Tessu, yeah, I got picked up some more on the way home. I've still got some left. Want some? And Tessu was like, ah. He realized that he didn't win that drinking contest. He slunk off home. That was one time. He didn't shine. Kind of got up on tangent on that one, but you should read this book, The Sword of No Sword. It's unbelievable. Not too many biographies like this. Greatest swordsman Japan ever produced. Greatest calligrapher Japan ever produced. Impossible. One of the 3 great statesmen of his age single-handedly saved his country from civil war. And just all kind of virtuous people he helped over his life. Those millions and millions and millions of dollars that he was quite a bodhisattva. And so devoted to the brush. I mean, I just want to spend the rest of my life copying the sutras. He was so devoted to the brush. We can learn a lot from the stroke business. If only we knew how to do it. If only we knew anything about the principles of calligraphy, which we don't. No one is teaching it. No one knows it. No one cares. Even the great calligraphers are more interested in the end results than how to teach students how to really do it. In my humble opinion. I got a video. Watch my video on calligraphy. It'll change your stroke practice, I'll tell you that. You'll figure out what it's about. It really, really means something. It really change your life. You will really learn how to integrate. So, we get to the climax. The climax of that week of Tilopa assembly was this ceremony where each person kneels down in front of Trungpa Rinpoche. There's like 340 people. I don't know. There's a ton of people, man. People after people after people for 4 hours or something. Plus an interminable length of time. And they each bow and they receive a blessing from the Trungpa Rinpoche on ink on their tongue. They surrender their eyes, tongue, and heart to Trungpa Rinpoche. And he places the dot of Ashe on their tongue as a blessing, which is part of the whole thing. It's very significant and integral to the whole calligraphy experience. So I don't know, I was like, somehow had a sense of, there was a knowing quality I had going on at the time. I wasn't a piece of wood that day. But leading up to it or something, I don't know what happened. I kind of learned how to surrender my eyes, tongue, and heart. It was a good 20 years of work, 30 years of work. It's a good idea. But a lot of people hadn't put in the work. They were so sincere. They were so well-meaning. They were such beautiful people. They were Buddhas if they only knew it. But they didn't know it. And they didn't really know how to surrender their eyes, tongue, and heart. But, I mean, some people were pretty good. Don't get me wrong. Some people were pretty good. Some people had trained and had some affinity, but a lot of people, it just hadn't occurred to them what this was really about yet. They're working. Everybody's working. Everybody's got their spot. There's no pejorative. This is nothing. It just broke my heart. Somebody could really do it. That was something. Somebody could really surrender their eyes, tongue, and heart. That was really something to see. That was really something to experience between them and Trungpa Rinpoche. That was just the most moving thing imaginable. Most moving thing imaginable. But also, somebody that just didn't know, didn't have a clue, was so feeble and so fumbling and so holding back. That's what broke your heart, man. That's what really broke your heart. That's what would kill you. That's what killed you. 500 times, 400 times, 300 times, either way. Either way. What really killed you would see somebody that just couldn't. I mean, the look on their face, the look on Trungpa Rinpoche's face, the meaning of the minds, it was all good. But something just broke your heart. Either way, what? All broke your heart, but really, the person who struggled the most broke your heart the most. That's the way it should be, it's kind of the opposite, right? No, man, help those beings. Help those beings. Help those beings that need help. That's it's really important, I think, to have compassion for beings who are struggling and are having ego problems and tough things in their lives. And it's wonderful that people that are not struggling so much. This is wonderful. This is wonderful, Baba. To really break your heart is compassion for all beings. And you're helping. You can't help everybody. Some people you can't help, but if you put your mind to it, you can help people. You can be kind to those people. You can be kind to those people. You can. The regent, he was supposed to receive space. Dougal Kinsey came, Rinpoche had a real affinity for karma, but I don't know if he really did for Dilgo Khyentse. But anyway, Dilgo Khyentse wanted to see him, you know. Sat around all day. All day, all day, all day. All day. Waiting for these special teachings from Dilgo Khyentse that he particularly wanted to give to the region. Finally, they got together, and finally, he was there, and Dilgo Khyentse said, "Be kind to others.